Welcome back, and now it's time for our On the Table segment, one that I'm quite excited for because the topic we're speaking about is one that's quite hot. This is On the Table with Otto. Otto, over to you.
Good evening and welcome back on The Table, where we discuss current issues making the news. Now, following a swift recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, Malaysia will now focus on bringing the economy back on track. Now, apart from being an export-oriented nation, the country is also heavily relying on foreign direct investments, or FDIs, as a constant revenue stream. Now, with us via a video call, we have on the line Dr. Tricia Yeo, CEO of Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, IDEAS. Dr. Tricia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time off your busy schedule to be with us today. Now, our first question is, firstly, we are heavily relying on FDIs. Is that true or not? And secondly, despite other forms of revenue streams, i.e. domestic direct investments, taxes, what else?
So thank you again. Yes, I think as Malaysia is an open trading economy, yes, despite the fact that we have a lot of exports and imports, and we want to ensure that trade is a big part of our economy, and of course, having also signed and ratified the CPTPP recently, we would like to see that being promoted, reducing barriers to trade. But the answer is yes, we still continue to rely heavily on FDIs, foreign direct investments. I think if we look at the statistics that were released for January to September of last year, in terms of total investment, FDI contributed about 55.9%, that's almost 56% of total investment, whereas the domestic direct investments contributed about 44% of total investment. So FDI still is the majority share, but we also have quite a strong domestic investment. In fact, this increased 45% year on year. So we would like to see both happening, right? Both foreign as well as domestic, because both show up the confidence that they have in the economy. The thing is, because we still rely heavily on FDI, I think this is where it's very, very crucial. It continues to be important for Malaysia to promote better policy stability and continuity, demonstrate that there's good implementation of projects, demonstrate that we have strong institutions, and all of this collectively will paint a good picture of stability that foreign investors will see as attractive for Malaysia. We have a lot of good things going for the country. We have great infrastructure. We have actually a good talent pool, right, of people who actually can speak English and multilingual as well. I think we just need to correct some things in order for us to stay ahead of the game. I think the numbers also show that Malaysia is, number 4 in the region. We are still at this stage quite difficult to compete with other countries on the rise, such as Indonesia and Vietnam. But if we demonstrate, as I say, all these things, then these factors collectively can show that Malaysia is still open for business, and we can attract the kind of good quality investments that we would like to see coming into the country moving forward.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, to add on that, the Prime Minister's been on back-to-back trips overseas recently. Firstly, we had Australia, then Germany, that had churned out, well, rather good investments when it comes to various parties. Now, the numbers looks good. However, there's a process of due diligence, etc., most likely by MOF, MITI, before these investments can be realized, if I'm not mistaken. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, so just on the outset, I think we would like to say well done to the delegation led by Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, because these sorts of visits and trade visits are actually really important, these sort of investment trips, because it allows Malaysia to showcase itself to these countries. Sometimes those businesses perhaps may not be aware of the high quality resources and the infrastructure and so on that we do have in the country. So it's great to see that. I think we've seen from the news already investments from some major Australian and German companies coming into the country. So on your question about whether or not there will be investment screenings, right, from MITI, I do think that there is a National Investment Council and a National Committee on Investment. These committees provide some strategic oversight, advisory, coordination, and so on. But you're right that the committee would like to see better quality investments. I think we've talked a long time about Malaysia moving up the value chain. What that means is that we want to see investments coming in that are going to contribute to greater economic complexity. I think the research has also shown that when it doesn't matter so much which sector the investments are in, but how complex the investments would be, meaning the kind of complexities that in Malaysia, whether it's in manufacturing and so on and so forth, these are good quality investments because it will translate into knowledge transfer among the labor sector here. And of course, we also don't want investments that will, for example, unnecessarily pollute the environment. So I think it's important to see investments in the context of the broader ESG, that we are part of the global economy and we will inevitably have to adhere to some of these global standards as well. And I think the last thing to say on this matter is that MIDA has just released something called TRACK. TRACK was formerly known as PATRU. It's basically to accelerate the project implementation process. It's supposed to provide some kind of end-to-end facilitation service by projects approved by the National Committee of Investment. So these are all positive steps, but ultimately, like I said earlier, all these things don't matter if we don't correct the framework, the strong institutions, addressing things like corruption, independent institutions, stronger institutions like separating the Attorney General from the Public Prosecutor. Some of these legislative changes also do help to create a greater impression to our international colleagues.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Now that we see that we are in favor of some foreign investments here in Malaysia, given like in Germany, now does the ringgit play another pivotal role in bringing in FDIs? Surely factors such as stable government, good GDP growth play as strong factors. Your thoughts on that, Doctor?
Yes, stable government is one thing that many people talk about, but I think the experience of Malaysia over the last few years, interestingly, shows you that despite there not being a stable government, it is possible to have policy continuity and consistency. I think that is actually more important than having a stable government. Governments can come and go, they can change, but if we are going to still provide a secure, stable policy environment for businesses to operate in, then it actually doesn't matter which political coalition comes in. Investors, businesses, all they care about is, are we having the same policies? Can we rely on the institutions to secure us these same policies? What we don't want to see are, reversals of policies overnight if the governments change. And I think the last few years tells us that it's okay. Policy stability can actually continue. But as you say, things like stable policy, good GDP growth, that's definitely important in bringing in FDIs. The ringgit is, I wouldn't say that the ringgit itself has a direct role to play in bringing in FDIs. I would say that the status of the ringgit actually is more a sign or a symptom of confidence generally in the country's macroeconomic policies and microeconomic policies, how we've been able to manage factors of production within the country itself. But as you try to allude to, I think it is an indication, so it's not something to brush away lightly. And it's also a result of decades, right, of certain economic structural issues that I think are important to address. I've mentioned some of them, including making sure that our talent pool is readily available. Education is crucial in making sure that we have that right talent pool. Looking at our institutions, I mentioned a little bit about addressing corruption, making sure we have stable policy. All of these things collectively will contribute to a greater, stronger ringgit, and that collectively would also play that pivotal role in eventually bringing in FDIs into the country.
Well, seeing that you have laid out a lot of factors over there, it seems that we're doing very well so far. But moving on to the next question, international chambers of commerce such as Malaysia-China Chamber of Commerce, MCCC, American-Malaysian Chamber of Commerce, AmCham, among others, have been promoting bilateral trade, investments. Your thoughts on their role in contributing to the economic growth?
Yeah, thank you. I think just to answer a little bit of the previous thing, the question that you laid out, I wouldn't say that we are, doing extremely well. I think if you compare Malaysia to where we were in the past, we were definitely the leader within Southeast Asia. And that's because we actually have fundamentally very good, like I said, many factors going, infrastructure and so on. But if we don't actually catch up, we will lose out to our neighbors who are very much more aggressive than us. You talked about chambers. So yes, of course, chambers of commerce do play an important role in establishing strong bilateral business-to-business and business-to-government networks. And ultimately, this builds confidence in the country's investment environment. They also represent the investor community, right, both local and foreign. To actively advocate for regulatory and investment policies that promote competitive business and a thriving investment environment. So all of this should translate to more business opportunities and growth. But only if the government actually listens, right? So one thing that I've actually heard of very recently is that the chambers of commerce regularly seem to have a problem with processing things under the immigration, meaning that it's actually very difficult for some of these foreign counterparts who are coming into the country, right, setting up their foreign offices here in Malaysia to get their working permits processed in a speedily manner. So that's something that is a very low-hanging fruit. Hopefully, this is something the Immigration Department under the Home Ministry would pay attention to, because these things do matter in attracting business. Behind business are people, and behind people are families. They will come here, they will eventually bring their families here. So if we ease that process, this would also indicate and show to the rest of the world that yes, we want you here, we want your investments, and we also will facilitate that in a way that would make it most efficient and friendly for you to be here.
Oh, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Doctor, and I appreciate all your thoughts and your ideas, especially how you laid everything out. It's very insightful. But that's all the time that we have, and thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
And once again, thank you to our guest for today, Dr. Tricia, for joining us on the show. And that's all the time that we have. Stay tuned